This episode of Dispatches from Planet Albany is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers, which represents more than 600,000 educators and school-related professionals in New York. Dispatches is also supported by the public affairs firm O'Donnell and Associates. For more information, check out o'donnellsolutions.com. Let's just hit record and see what happens.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out, and he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a podcast about power and politics in state government. And on today's program, we're exploring the changing power structure in the Assembly, where the departure of the local government committee chair this summer has set off a game of musical chairs, resulting in Rochester-area Democrat Jen Lunsford as the assistant majority leader, a position that, according to the press release, makes her responsible for actively managing the Assembly floor during session and, quote, support coordination among the Assembly Majority Conference. And Assemblymember Lunsford joins us now to explain what it all means. Thanks for making the time, Assemblymember, and should I say congrats on the promotion?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So how has this job been pitched to you, and what's your understanding of your responsibilities, and how, if at all, is that informed by what the previous Assistant Majority Leader, Charles Fall, who now was elevated to Deputy Majority Leader, did in this position?
Sure. So for those of you who don't even really understand what the majority leader does, I think we kind of need to start there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the leadership positions in the Assembly are the Speaker, who, is Carl Hastie. And Carl isn't on the floor most of the time. He's working. He's in the chamber. He's in his office. He's moving around, but he's taking meetings.
If he's on the floor, something's either really wrong or there's a really big deal vote.
Or someone exciting has shown up.
Touche,
Those are the other
yes.
But yeah, anytime Carl walks on the floor, I get like physically tense. Like, what happened? So we have a Speaker pro tem who is Pam Hunter, who sits on the dais, sits on the rostrum, and organizes the votes, calls the votes.
She's the voice of God.
She's the voice of God. The majority leader is Crystal Peoples-Stokes, and she sits on the floor. She sits next to our floor counsel. She helps call the vote, so she'll literally give a thumbs up to Pam, saying, "Yes, go ahead, call the vote." If let's say we did a slow roll call where we have to actually push our buttons, sometimes it requires physically running around and going and getting people to make sure they're voting. If there's people who are, let's say, talking a little longer than we might like them to, we need to move things along for efficiency, sometimes Crystal will come and give you a tap and be like, "Do you really need to say it? Could you maybe explain your vote?" To try to just kind of keep things moving. It's the foreman, in a way, of the floor. And another thing that the majority leader can do is, kind of speak for the conference sometimes. When Crystal stands up, very often that is a signal to the rest of us to sit down, we're done talking. If we didn't have someone, I think, rounding us up, all we would do all day is talk, and we'd pass 3 bills a year. The thing is, Crystal's busy as well. So sometimes Crystal can't be on the floor. When she's not on the floor, we need a hierarchy of people who go and sit in that seat. Prior to Charles, it was Michaela Salages, who is now taken over as local gov chair. Because as you said, once Billy Jones left, one person leaving, that person leaves the committee they're the chair of in this situation, and then also every other committee. And then that can set off a cascade of dominoes that can move 15 people.
Depending on how desirable that committee is.
Yes. But even then, every committee Billy left now has an open seat. And that just juggles everyone around.
Right.
I remember when LaToya Joyner left early last year, it took 3.5 weeks to sort everything out.
And because she had labor.
Because she had labor. It's incredibly complicated, and I do not envy the people in the back who have what I'm sure is a giant board with red string connecting all of us.
And it's the same thing with offices. When somebody has a desirable office they move, you begin that whole evolution.
I didn't paint my office this last time I moved because I was like, I'm just going to stay here. It'll be fine. It's blue.
Smart.
So when now Charles Fall has taken over the deputy position. So when Crystal's not on the floor, Charles does it. And then when Charles is not on the floor, I do it. And then so we have 2 extra levels of support so that when people can't be there, there is always a designated person to run the floor so that there are no questions and there is consistency amongst leadership.
And if People Stokes and Fall are present, does that mean you're off the hook, or is there a chance that they will want you to do something?
Let's say that they know something's coming up, that there's a long debate, but they know they're going to have to go for some reason. They might tap me in or they might give me a heads up. I think one of the reasons I got this position and one of the reasons I am well suited to it is I am very famously always on the floor.
I heard that, yes.
Yes. Al Sturpey jokes that I am like the carpet. You walk in and I am there. If we are supposed to be in session at 2:00, I am there at 1:55. I am sitting in my seat. I do my work at my seat. If you don't see me, it's because I'm in the back. I am in the chamber. I tend to not do rallies or press conferences unless they're about a very local issue where I have to go. If you want a meeting with me, you pull me off the floor. I don't go back to my office. I am always present because I think that that's a really important part of my job. And I think being someone who's reliably present is part of what put me into this position.
Isn't that also open you up to a lot of boredom? Because a session that's supposed to start at 2, that doesn't start at 2.
I will tell you, I get a lot done. It's actually when I do a lot of my constituent emails. I sit on the floor and it's quiet. I'm the only one in there for the 45 minutes before we were supposed to start. So I do a lot of desk work at that time. I really don't get a lot of time to do desk work, to write emails, to read through, say, I might have a committee agenda the next day and I haven't had an opportunity to review all the bills, if I need to respond internally. But it's also a good time on the floor to get business done with other people because I might run into the chair of something. I sit right next to Deborah Glick and I'm on NCON. So I might need to have a conversation about something on NCON and I can physically turn to Deborah, who's also always there, and talk to her about it. Or I can go in the back and grab staff. It's really, when I'm in Albany, where I get most of my work done is on the floor.
Well, where do you think that level of commitment to doing the work and being present in the chamber comes from? Because there are other lawyers in the assembly who use that time to literally do work that has nothing to do with the legislature.
So I don't practice outside of the assembly. I left the practice of law because I realized I would just do both jobs poorly. I was a litigator who dealt with human people, and I can't just be like, I'm not your lawyer 6 months of the year. There's other people who do transactional work, and that's a little bit easier to hang on to, but the kind of work I did, it would have been impossible. I also am a extreme goody two-shoes. Like I do not do political work in government buildings. I will step out in the hallway from my DO. I never do anything campaign related. And I don't have my own private business. So that gives me more time. When I'm in Albany, I'm on Albany time. That's how I roll. But I think other people, they just prioritize different things. I don't necessarily think that's bad. It's just different than the way I do it. My methodology is probably linked as much to a diagnosable anxiety condition as it is anything else. I don't want to pretend like I'm, superior to other people, but I have always been a person who is, if I'm on time, I'm late. So I have to be places early, or I'm just filled with anxiety about the fact that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. That causes great trouble in Albany, where I am sometimes triple booked, like especially when we have joint budget hearings and I'm supposed to be in a joint budget hearing and a committee meeting and on the floor. I just exist in a state of discomfort.
For more than 100 years, the New York State Association of Counties has served as the united voice of New York's county leaders, fostering excellence in county government and advocating for sustainable funding and sensible legislation that protects local taxpayers and the essential services they rely on. Learn more at nysac.org. So how does the fact that you're a lawyer enter into this at all? Because I don't believe the majority leader or now deputy majority leader Fall are attorneys. So is there something about having a legal background that makes you better for this position? Do you think that having a legal degree comes into play in other aspects, maybe for floor debates, if that's something you're going to do, although People Stokes isn't necessarily debating the bills?
So I think it's not necessarily for this position, because if you look before Crystal, Joe Morelli wasn't a lawyer either.
Right.
I think being a lawyer gives me a lot of really helpful skills, certainly a very transferable skill set from private practice because of the kind of work I did. I dealt with so many different areas of state law. I handled cases involving the scaffold law, involving medical malpractice, involving car accidents, no fault, workers' comp. So I touched a lot of areas, and it gave me a lot of very specific expertise. And I think obviously, especially litigators, we do have good debate skills.
Hmm.
I do think I am one of the stronger debaters in the assembly, and that is a function of being a lawyer. But I think you can certainly see over the last year, especially since we lost Ken Zabrowski and Monica Wallace, that the very wonky bills that say when OCA has a program bill or there's something very specific in law, those have been falling to me disproportionately. And I have had to do some debates where only me and the person I'm debating know what we're talking about.
Well, that was something I was going to ask you about, specifically with the departure of Ken last year. And I didn't even think about Assemblymember Monica Wallace, who I now think is a judge.
She is. She's a court of claims judge.
Yes.
She got a promotion. She did very well.
Nice to have friends in high places, or be, I guess, a Democrat in New York. Anyway, is that a position you want to have, being that go-to debater, or is that something where you're like, shrug, me again? Come on, there's a whole bunch of other lawyers out here. What's the Judiciary Chair doing right now? Come on.
I actually love debating. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do. A lot of this job is a slog, and debating, it's part of why I'm a lawyer. I went to law school because I was like this, and I figured if I was going to be like this, someone should pay me. So I kind of get energized by debating. I think it's fun. And I often don't, I mean, you only pass so many bills. Not all my bills get debated, and we don't really, get to play all that much on the floor. So when I do get to debate, I do really enjoy it.
Who's the best debater on the GOP side? Who do you look forward to sparring with?
I think that the new minority floor leader, Mary Beth Walsh, she's very good. She's
Also an attorney.
Also an attorney. I say this with like, it's going to sound like a joke, but like, she's a normal person who engages you in good faith. And that's really what I want. Ed Ra, again, like a person who asks you real questions and engages you in good faith. We have some people who I think sometimes they have their list of questions, and those questions came maybe from the same person who gave questions to three other people.
You say maybe. They definitely came from staff. They definitely came from staff.
And they're like,
this is the first time they've seen these.
Did you not listen to the three people before you who already asked this question? Like, what are we doing? So, like, I get a little frustrated. Anytime you see me explaining my vote on the floor, I have never planned that. That is always me having my blood boil to the point that the steam has propelled me into a standing position, and I'm furiously pushing my button because I just can't take it anymore. That's the majority of my speaking on the floor. But, there are some of my colleagues on the other side. Josh Jensen is a very good debater as well, and because he's the health ranker, and I tend to have a decent amount of health bills, I do end up debating him a lot as well. And, we're also, very friendly because we're in the same county. But we just have some very strong debaters on the other side who ask questions that help people understand what a bill does, challenge its weaker spots, maybe highlight for the governor places that it could get negotiated. That's awesome. Let's do that. I'm happy to do that all day. And I'll also say something people don't see is those are also people where if I see that a bill's up for debate, I can go over and say, hey, what's the issue? And sometimes we can just work it out and then we can avoid the debate. And I can say, oh, no problem. I can make that change. That's a good point. And then we're, efficiently moving bills through without having to use floor time, because using floor time is really what slows government down.
How reliant are you, because you're a nerd, because you get prepared, on the staff that often will sidle up next to a member when they've got a debate? They sit down, they've got their notes, their mics go off, they whisper answers to some of the questions. How reliant are you on them? Or is this, say, maybe a point of pride where you want to avoid having the legislative staffers help you?
I very rarely need staff help, especially on my own bills, because I know my own bills. There were a couple times last year where I had taken a bill from someone who left, so where I wasn't the person who wrote the bill, or I got a program bill that sometimes I got like a couple days notice on. There were a couple situations in prior years where a member couldn't debate their bill for some reason because of a medical issue, and I ended up debating their bill for them. So I had staff there because those weren't my bills, but to be completely honest, I barely spoke to them because I I am, again, probably due to an anxiety condition, very, very prepared and have a deep understanding of what I'm talking about most of the time. So I tend to not have to rely on staff. In fact, there are times you might even see me when other people are debating things I have expertise in, I go and sit behind them and then I whisper things to them
Is that
because
welcome, or are they like, shut the hell
I
up, Jen?
it usually is. I've actually had people ask me to do it. I've
Okay.
had people ask me to stay in my seat or stay in my row, so because they're near me. I've been supportive at times, especially when you're in areas that I practice law in, because a lot of times I'll have actual examples of things.
So let's say there is a session day in the future where People Stokes is out, Charles Fall is out because he's got some sort of male modeling contract, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
that was a great picture, Charles.
oh gosh, and I have a separate episode about that. And so you're running things. How
Which does
comfortable?
happen.
Yeah, well, how comfortable do you feel cracking the whip? You are not a senior member by any sense of the word. I think you're a 2022, sorry, 2020 inductee. So, do you feel comfortable telling people who are senior in both age and status, "Hey, shut up," or "Hey, come vote," or "Hey, vote this other way," or "Hey, we're not taking your bill up today. Sorry."
I think that it is unlikely that I would be the person who has to tell someone their bill's not up. And
Hmm.
that's also why we have John, floor counsel, if I really need to send someone in for the bad news. But I also think I have a good reputation with my colleagues as a person who is conscientious and respectful of them. And I tend to have a nice working relationship with everyone. I have, as far as I am aware, no enemies in my conference. So I think that to the extent that I had to be like, hey, look, we're running out of time, they're giving me the hook, I can convey that in a way that would be not insulting or disrespectful. I think one of the things I pride myself on is that I only speak when I have something to say. I'm not someone who gets up in conference just to hear my own voice. So that when I do speak, I think people take me a little more seriously. And I think that would probably be true in this position as well.
Well, what is your role, if any, with conference now? Do you have some sort of organizational responsibilities in terms of keeping some sort of queue rolling or telling people to wrap up or whatever?
No, we have a whole separate person who does that. That is Sarah Clark.
Hmm.
She is the majority conference chair. So she is the person who has to keep time. She has, and similarly, we have two levels under her as well. So, like, we always have three levels of people because things happen. We are overbooked all the time. So having people who, again, are designated, who are supposed to be button seat to provide backup is really important. My class is sort of just aging up into this. Seniority isn't the only marker, especially with Carl. Carl sort of started to deviate a little bit
Hmm.
in naming people to leadership roles through seniority. But my class, I had the largest incoming class since 1972. There were 18 of us. And so far, we've lost Kenny Burgos. We lost Gina Solitti, my sweet lady. I'm never going to be able to say her name out loud without crying. Where it looks like we're probably losing Zoran.
Hmm.
So, we're starting to atrophy. But in terms of seniority, my class in the next cycle is probably going to start getting chair positions. So we'll start to see some movement there.
Well, let's think about the future and what would you like your future in leadership to look like? Obviously, there's deputy majority leader, but is there a future where you see yourself as the upstate representative who fills that majority leader position? Is there some sort of committee that you have your eyes set on? Are you counting down the days till you can get out of the assembly and take over for Joe Morelli in Congress? I mean, what does the future of leadership look like for you?
I truly am assembly or bust.
Okay.
I do not think I would ever run for another elected position. If for no other reason, selfishly, then I never want to have to raise more money than I raise right now. I mean, the amount of money you have to raise to run for office after the assembly is two-thirds of your job. It's of little interest to me. I can be so impactful in the assembly and really make change in a way that matters to my district. Another thing I really like about the assembly is the size of my constituency
Mm.
is almost perfect. I get to talk to actual constituents. I deal with real constituent problems. Just last week I had a woman with an absolutely crazy problem with the DMV that I fixed. My staff didn't fix it. I called and fixed it. And I like actually working with people and helping them. And when you get bigger than the assembly, your contact with actual humans starts to reduce. And I'll tell you, the parts where I really hate this job is when we're in Albany in the middle of budget. We've been there for a month. I'm like really disconnected from the district. And that's when I kind of start to feel like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why have I left my family for this? And then I come back to the district and I get some kid brain cancer treatment that his insurance wouldn't cover. And I was like, yes, that's why I do this. But in terms of leadership, I am exactly the kind of seat that you would give a majority leader position to historically. But I think that would be many, many years out from now.
Why many years out from now?
I'm looking at the ages of the people who would be in line for that before me. But I think I'm certainly positioning myself to be sort of resident legal nerd. I sit on judiciary. I think that my time in the barrel at ethics will likely come because all the lawyers have to do it.
And to be clear, that doesn't mean that you'll be the subject of the ethics committee.
Not.
You will hopefully be the chair of it.
The chair. You want to talk about something that you do out of a sense of duty. I've had to fill in on some ethics because people were, disqualified for conflict. I do not enjoy it. I do not like it, but every lawyer tends to have to do their time there. I think that ultimately somewhere in judiciary is likely a place I'll end up at some point just because of my wonky areas of expertise.
Well, do you want to play the game of committee musical chairs in the interim, though? Because you'll get people who will jump from Veterans Affairs over to energy or all sorts of different things that they may not have any sort of background in, but it's just how you climb the ladder unless you do bide your time and then jump in somewhere.
Well, I am, again, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. And if you need me to do something like be ethics chair, I'll do it. I'll tell you though, libraries is often a starter committee for people. I would love to be the chair of libraries. I am such a dork. I have a jacket. I will wear it to Albany. You should see it. I love libraries, and I have had this scheme in my head for years to get our state libraries $1 billion one shot of capital. And I have been trying to talk it through with the chairs and trying to get the state library people on board with me. And I was like, let me be your chair and we'll find a way to make this happen. I have the I Love Our New York Libraries custom license plate on my car. I am a Dorkosaurus Rex, and I would happily sit in libraries for a couple of years just because I love it from a subject matter perspective.
Well, Bobby Carroll's got 4 years on you, so there's definitely some ladder climbing you have to do. Yeah. Well, we've been speaking with Assemblymember Jen Lunsford. She is a Rochester-area Democrat who is now the Assistant Majority Leader in the Assembly. Assemblymember, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Thanks so much.
And we're back with Working Rules, and we're joined for this High Holidays edition of the segment by Jason Bieferman, author of the PM Playbook from Politico New York. Lashana Tova, Jason.
Lashana Tova.
I hope my pronunciation was okay, because I'm only half Jewish, so I only got it half right, I think.
I think you did a little bit better than 50%.
Excellent. So I've asked you to join us here to discuss Menorah Gate, which is how you dubbed the what I'll call faux controversy surrounding Congresswoman Elise Stefanik tweeting a Rosh Hashanah message this week that included a menorah. And maybe I shouldn't call it a faux controversy because it ultimately resulted in a member of her staff getting fired, according to her spokesperson. Are you surprised by how this sort of thing escalated? I mean, I'm not surprised that Democrats tried to make hay of it, with Brad Lander, who is a Jewish lawmaker in New York City, calling out the upstate congresswoman. But the firing, surprised?
I am surprised. I think even the Democrats who, were eager to get some press coverage over this Menorah Gate, as I called it, I think even they were like, whoa, that's pretty intense. I feel bad for the person that did it, and some might call it kind of ruthless to fire, a young staffer who just put a menorah in the background. Someone I talked to said, if he or she had just put, a few less candles, it would have been much less of a controversy because it would have been a basic menorah. But all of a sudden, you got the shamash in there, and it's a big issue.
Yeah, I liked this more when it was kind of a laughing matter with tweets that I enjoyed, like someone calling it Rosh Hashanah, which tickled my funny bone. But yeah, if people are actually, suffering consequences for what is a deleted tweet, it kind of makes you feel ick. Did any Democrats that you talked to about this kind of feel bad for shining a spotlight on it, or were they focused more on turning it into an Elise Stefanik attack thing, whether it was the Rosh Hashanah inaccuracies or then not taking responsibility for the issue and saying the appropriate person has been, let go?
I think they were laser focused on getting an attack on Elise. If we recall, Hochul made headlines, at least in the Politico newsletter, for a flub of her own. That was very different. It was in real life, and she remarked while speaking at a predominantly black church in Buffalo that inflation refund checks were coming in soon, and she warned a bunch of black churchgoers not to spend those checks at their liquor store, and that was something that Delgado and Stefanik quickly jumped on the governor for, and that was definitely a flub, and this was a little different. It wasn't Stefanik herself. But of course that's just part of the game. Democrats want to score points. Republicans want to score points. And I personally am Jewish. I wasn't offended. I actually didn't notice the Hanukkah in the background initially. But obviously Brad Lander thought it was a big issue. And I think, like I said, people were shocked. And maybe that...
Well, when you say people were shocked, I think if we walked out of the bubble that we live in, most people, 99%, don't even know anything about this tweet or this intrigue.
No, I mean, people were shocked that person was fired.
Okay.
And
do we actually know for certain that someone was fired? Because it could just be that they keep this generic name on staff, and they're like, "Yep, we fired so and so," and it's like that person never even existed. It's like how I blame an editor for headlines that people don't like. That was what I used to do at the Times Union. Now I blame Syracuse for things that happen that people don't like.
Yeah, that did occur to me. Is this just a tactic to either make me feel bad for writing it, or to try to show that Elise, is a serious person? But as far as I can tell, this is legit, and I know that I will be. There are ways to follow up through
look at the payroll,
public records, exactly, and maybe that young staffer is reflecting on this, and one day will say maybe I don't want to work for someone that's going to fire me over a mistaken an image, or maybe they'll say, wow, that was a real learning moment to really pay attention when I'm issuing holiday greetings.
Yeah, it really makes you think how all these people will be celebrating Yom Kippur and what sort of atonement they'll feel like they need to do.
And one thing interesting about Menorah Gate is it follows up on another controversy I call Plane Gate, which is when Mike Lawler and a bunch of other Republicans, mostly Republicans, posted pictures for the anniversary of the Air Force. It was the Air Force's creation, their anniversary, and they all included pictures of planes that were from the Navy.
Ooh.
And the DCCC was also sending out emails saying, "Did you guys see Mike Lawler? He doesn't care about the Air Force. He put a picture of a plane that was part of the Navy." So, I mean, Republicans, they need to be paying more attention to their graphics as far as I'm concerned.
So are you going to be keeping an eye on the graphics that are shared and the social media messages that are shared for Yom Kippur, making sure there's nothing too upbeat and that everyone is being appropriately somber on this period of reflection?
I don't know if that's a very fun way to spend my holiday, but...
Well, it's not supposed to be fun, Jason. We're supposed to connect with Adonai and, look inward.
Yeah.
So because I've got you here, and because, as you said, you are Jewish, and I've got at least half the credentials you have, because my mom is Jewish, you noted before we went on the air that you'd seen the video of Raga talking about black and white cookies, and because you're from Long Island, I'm curious if you wanted to weigh in on the name of that cookie specifically, because I brought up this video to my colleagues in Syracuse, and they lost their shit by the fact we were calling it a black and white cookie and not a half moon cookie. Do you have any skin in this game?
Yes, it's 100% a black and white cookie. I've never heard it called anything else.
Even in your time upstate here in Albany?
No, and this cookie had such a large presence in my life that I didn't even realize that it was just a New York thing. I thought it was just in everywhere. This is just part of everyone's childhood. So, yeah, it's a black and white cookie. That's it. It's not a white and black cookie. That's just how it is.
Well, do you think then, moving forward, thinking about our gates here, could we potentially have a half moon gate, a black and white cookie gate, if we have, say, an upstate official like an Elise Stefanik who's trying to campaign statewide and uses that lingo, south of that upstate nebulous border?
I don't know. I guess if she's trying to connect with the people in Syracuse, and maybe that will win her some points, as opposed to when Letitia James didn't know about a garbage plate.
And she's still doing okay.
Yeah,
she's
doing great.
Unseated. Well, Jason, thank you for visiting us for this edition of Working Rules, and Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year.
Would be a Shonda, as we say.